break, as promised, let's talk about Shamima Begum. She fled to, or travelled to Syria in 2015 at the age of 15. She became an ISIS bride. She teamed up with ISIS, lived in that awful caliphate. So as a result of that, her British citizenship was revoked. Basically, she's a terrorist and she is a national security threat to Britain. She's now 24 and she's trying to come back. She's trying to have her British citizenship reinstated and she wants to come back to live here. Now, if she ever did live here, we'd be talking about £1 million a week to monitor her. Meanwhile, this endless set of legal appeals continues apace. This has cost the British taxpayer millions and millions of pounds, and she's in the Court of Appeal yet again on what I would call a hiding to nothing. How much longer are we going to put up with this? Should she not stay where she is, where many believe she belongs, the Syrian desert, in a refugee camp? She's the architect of her own downfall. Her lawyers say she was the victim of sexual grooming and was a minor at the time. But this case has been... They keep losing this case time and time again, and yet they keep coming back at our expense. Let's get the view of international security specialist Will Geddes, who's in the studio. Thanks for joining us, Will. About time this ended, isn't it?
It's got to, Kev. I mean, to be honest, we can only go so far in trying to provide a fair hearing and a fair trial for her in terms of her constant and continued request for obviously reinstating her citizenship. But there's very, very, very good reasons for why that shouldn't happen, over and beyond what you've mentioned, which should be sufficient anyway. But Sajid Javid made his original argument when he was Home Secretary, his original arguments for obviously revoking her citizenship based on very, very critical intelligence that was provided to him by MI6. Now, MI6 will try and provide as balanced a view as they possibly can, certainly from my experience, in terms of assessing and evaluating individuals that could be termed a subject of interest. And they will look at far beyond just what that individual's own potential capabilities might be. And I would say that there is obviously still very, very good reasons for why she should remain in that refugee camp and not being given the privilege of returning to the United Kingdom when she did originally, and I disregard the fact of her age when she left for Syria to join ISIS, the fact that she should not be given the privileges of becoming a British citizen again.
She married a jihadi husband. He's Dutch, actually, but very much a part of ISIS. Let's see if I get this right. His name is Yargo Rajdik. He fought for ISIS, so she was right in the heart of that appalling organisation, witnessing atrocities by the day.
More than that, Kev.
She told herself of, seeing heads, decapitated heads in waste paper bins and things like that, and she helped arm her husband. She's the terrorist, and as such, should not be ever allowed back.
Well, from what I've heard, Kev, there's very little that she's actually revealed about what she did there, and she's inerted many of her functions as just simply being a jihadi wife. What I do know from my own intelligence is that a lot of the jihadi brides, and particularly the foreign ones, that came from all over Europe, including the United Kingdom, were involved in not only obviously supporting their husbands, so they're collaborating obviously in terrorist acts and supporting and preparing their husbands for obviously these terrorist acts, but they were also very, very much involved in the herding and management and, to a certain extent, abuse of the Yazidi women who were captured by the Islamic State members to be used as sex slaves. Now, again, the jihadi brides and wives were very much involved in perpetrating abuse and supporting basically the Islamic State way of life. And this way of life was biblical in every capacity.
Medieval, I think. Now, her lawyers say that she was the victim of sex trafficking, that she was trafficked, radicalised, and therefore, when she was only 15, somehow a victim and cannot be blamed for this. But By the time she arrived there, she was 16. She went on to have, I think, 3 children with her husband, all of whom sadly died. I've heard stories that actually she's one of the ringleaders of the more militant terrorist women in this refugee camp. And she's very artful, I would suggest, because, you know, there was that image we had of her in her hijab and all that, and very much the Muslim woman. And yet, suddenly, when she's desperate to get back here, she turns up dressed like a Western girl, you know, hey, I want to get back to my home country. This is all sophistry, isn't it?
It is theatrics. Yeah. It's theatrics, Kev. There's no better way of putting it. She's trying to obviously frame the optics that she is the poor, innocent individual. But you're absolutely right. In terms of her actually going out there, she went out there willingly. Now, in terms of any coercion or grooming, yes, that is a subject to discussion and it is open to debate. However, she went willingly and she wasn't a victim other than by circumstances and of the environment that she was in. As far as I know, and she's not made any claim to this, she was not abused. And most cases of grooming, I think this dilutes and mocks traditional grooming situations where people are victimized by groomers who are very professional in the way that they will often undertake that exercise. But for her, she went down there willingly knowing full well, and she comes out with these various claims which she subsequently, what's the best way of putting it? She's contradicted herself. She said she didn't know what she was walking into. Now, my company and myself, we did a lot of research about what was actually available on open source intelligence, i.e. on the web, in YouTube, various other social media platforms, that were propaganda videos that were being promoted and published around social media and the internet to show what the caliphate was about, what they were doing, the executions and everything else.
She's an extremist and she's a danger to this country and therefore should stay where you are.